In a world where tomorrow whispers through dreams, one girl sees what others cannot, visions of moments not yet lived, of faces not yet met, and one love that feels like it has always been. But when destiny and time collide, and the line between memory and miracle begins to blur, she'll discover that some dreams don't wait for the future, they create it. This is the story of Liana and Aris, of love that defied time, rewrote the stars, and remembered what the world forgot. Welcome to The Girl Who Remembered Tomorrow, written by PK. If you believe in love that transcends time, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us as we step into the dream together.
The city of Aurelian never truly slept. Even at 3 in the morning, its skyline shimmered like spilled starlight, towers crowned in glass and gold, air thick with the hum of distant trains, and a soft rain that whispered secrets against the windows of those who dared to dream. Liana Everen was one of them. She lay awake in her small apartment above a bookstore, the city's glow painting ribbons of silver across her ceiling. Her heartbeat was still racing, her breath uneven, because the dream had come again, the same dream that had haunted her since she turned 21. She saw tomorrow. In it, she stood beneath a sky that looked fractured, streaks of aurora bending over skyscrapers, people running, clocks freezing mid-tick, and then, always, a face appeared through the chaos. A man's face, calm, almost ethereal, with eyes like burning stormlight. He reached for her, his voice trembling through the dream. "Liana, you have to remember before it's too late." And then the world dissolved. She pressed her hand to her chest, feeling the echo of that voice in her ribs. She'd tried to tell herself it was just anxiety, just imagination. But then small things began happening. Newspaper headlines she dreamed of appearing the next day, strangers on the subway whose words she already knew. And now, every night, the dream grew clearer. With a shaky sigh, she slipped from bed and walked to the window. The streets below were slick with rain, reflecting colors like melted constellations. Somewhere, she knew, the man from her dreams was real, because his presence lingered like music she couldn't forget. A knock at the door startled her. She frowned. At this hour? When she opened it, no one was there. Just a single envelope lying on the floor. No address, no stamp. Only her name, written in graceful silver ink. She tore it open carefully, heart pounding. Inside was a small painting of her face, and behind her painted image, standing in shadow, was him. At the bottom, a signature. Aris Vale. The name sent a shiver through her. She'd never met him, yet the moment she whispered his name, the air around her seemed to shimmer faintly, as though reality itself had flinched. Then, beneath the painting, faint glowing letters appeared, fading in and out like breathing light. "Find me before the clock strikes 13. Her lights flickered. The city's hum dimmed for half a heartbeat, and for just a moment, Liana swore she could hear a distant melody, soft, mournful, and beautiful, threading through the rain. She didn't know it yet, but that was the sound of fate waking up.
Morning came gently, filtering through curtains like pale gold silk. The city of Aurelian had its usual rhythm again, coffee brewing in corner cafes, footsteps echoing on rain-slick streets, and the hum of trams gliding through dawn fog. Yet to Liana Everen, the world felt altered. The envelope still lay on her desk, the painting inside it glowing faintly beneath the early light. She hadn't slept after finding it. Every brushstroke felt alive, as if the artist had captured her not just in color, but in soul. The man behind her, Aris Vale, was painted with such emotion it almost hurt to look at him. The softness of his expression,
The quiet ache in his eyes, it was the same face from her dreams. Her pulse quickened. "Find me before the clock strikes 13. She whispered the words aloud. But clocks don't strike 13. Still, something deep inside her, the part that had always sensed time differently, told her it wasn't a metaphor. It was a warning. A countdown. By noon, she was standing outside the Vale Gallery, a narrow art studio tucked between a florist and an antique bookstore in the city's historic quarter. The glass door was etched with silver letters that shimmered like dew. Aris Vale, painter of dreams and echoes. A bell chimed softly as she entered. The scent of turpentine and wild roses filled the air, mingling with the faint hum of classical music. The walls were lined with paintings, glowing cities beneath twilight skies, people made of starlight and shadow, moments that felt half real. And there, at the far end, stood a man painting on a large canvas. His dark hair fell loosely over his forehead, his coat sleeves rolled up, fingers stained in blue and gold. Liana froze. It was him. He turned as if he'd known she was coming. His gaze met hers, sharp and gentle at once. "Liana Everen," he said softly, like he'd spoken her name 1,000 times before. Her breath caught. "How do you know my name?" He smiled faintly, though his eyes were tired. "Because I've painted it, again and again, in every lifetime we've shared." The world seemed to tilt. "What do you mean?" He set down his brush, walking closer. There was something otherworldly in the way he moved, as if the air bent around him. "You dream of tomorrow, and I remember yesterday." A gust of wind blew through the open window, stirring the canvases. One painting toppled over, revealing a hidden mural behind it. Liana gasped. It was her standing beneath a sky of fractured light, her hand reaching toward Aris, exactly as she'd seen in her dreams. At the bottom of the mural, a faint symbol glowed, a spiral made of intersecting clocks. Liana stepped closer, her heart racing. "What is that?" Aris hesitated. "The mark of the thread keepers." "The what?" "The ones who guard the flow of time. Every century, one thread keeper dreams the future, and another remembers the past. We're bound together, in every life, to keep the world from unraveling." Liana's breath trembled. "And this time?" "This time," he said softly, "the threads are breaking. Someone is cutting time itself apart." A flash of light rippled through the room, and suddenly every clock in the gallery stopped. The tickings silenced, paintings shimmered like they were breathing. Aris turned toward the largest window, his voice grave. "They found us." And through the glass, Liana saw shadows gathering across the street, figures cloaked in silver mist, their eyes like fractured glass. The city around her still moved in daylight. Cars, people, chatter, but none of them saw what she did. Only Aris, only her. Then he reached for her hand. "If you trust me, we can still fix the future before it forgets us." His hand was warm, too real to be a dream. And as their fingers touched, the world flickered, light bending, time stuttering, and Aurelian fell away into a blur of starlight and echoing clocks. When the world stopped spinning, Liana felt herself suspended in light. Colors swirled around her like ribbons, gold, violet, and deep indigo, the hues of twilight between one heartbeat and the next. The air was heavy with music that wasn't made of sound, but memory, like distant bells ringing beneath her skin. Then gravity returned. Her knees hit something solid, not the marble floor of the gallery, but soft, glowing moss. The air smelled of rain and stars. She opened her eyes. They stood in a place that felt halfway between dream and sky, an endless meadow floating in the dark. All around them, thousands of luminous threads crisscrossed the air, weaving a shimmering web from horizon to horizon. Each thread pulsed faintly, like the beat of a living heart. Aris stepped forward, his eyes reflecting the starlight. This is the veil between, the place where time weaves itself. Liana's breath hitched. "It's beautiful," he said quietly. "It's dying. Look." She followed his gaze. Some of the threads were fraying, unraveling into black dust. As they broke, echoes shimmered into view, entire moments from other lives, lovers parting at a train station, a child releasing a lantern, a city burning under a violet sky. Then, with a faint sigh, each memory faded. "What's happening to them?" she whispered. "Time's unraveling. Someone or something is cutting the threads faster than the keepers can mend them." Aris turned to her. "That's why I sent you the painting. You're the dream keeper. You can see what's coming before it happens. I don't understand. You don't need to. You just have to trust that you've done this before. We both have." Liana's fingers trembled as she touched one of the glowing threads. It vibrated beneath her skin, flooding her mind with flashes. Herself in another century, standing in a library lit by candlelight, Aris beside her, both of them reaching toward a massive clock etched into the sky. A single phrase echoed in her head: "Find the heart of time before it stops beating." She gasped, pulling her hand back. "I saw us in another life." Aris nodded. "We've always found each other, Liana, across centuries, across dreams. But this time," he hesitated, his voice faltering, "this time the cycle is breaking." A low hum filled the air. The broken threads began to twitch, like something was pulling at them from below. Then, from the shadows beneath the glowing meadow, a rift opened, black and glimmering, edges dripping light like liquid glass. Liana instinctively stepped closer to Aris. "What is that?" He looked grim. "The place where forgotten tomorrows go." Figures emerged from the rift, cloaked in silver mist, faces hidden behind cracked mirrors. Their voices were distorted, echoing in layers. "The dream keeper has awakened. She must not remember." One raised a hand, and a wave of dark energy surged toward them. Aris pulled Liana behind him, his other hand glowing faintly with runes that flared to life across his skin. "Run!" They sprinted across the meadow, threads snapping and flaring around them like lightning. The ground shuddered as the creatures gave chase. One lunged, grabbing at Liana's wrist, but the moment its fingers touched her, it screamed and disintegrated into ash. She stared at her hand. It glowed faintly, as if wrapped in golden thread. Aris turned to her, eyes wide. "You can mend the threads," he breathed. "You can still change what's coming." Before she could answer, the meadow split apart and everything went white. When the light faded, they were back in the gallery. The clocks began ticking again, one by one. Liana fell to her knees, trembling. That wasn't a dream. Aris knelt beside her, brushing rain-soaked hair from her face. No, that was a warning. He glanced toward the window. The sky outside was no longer blue. It shimmered faintly, fractured, like a reflection on broken glass. "The countdown has begun," he said softly. "We have 13 days before the threads collapse completely." She met his gaze, heart pounding. "Then we'd better start remembering." Night fell quickly over Aurelian, painting the city in bruised shades of indigo and silver. From the roof of Aris's gallery, Liana could see the world she'd always known. Trains rumbling below, neon signs flickering against the rain, and yet everything felt distant now, fragile, as if the veil between reality and dream had thinned, and one wrong step could send her tumbling through time again. She pressed her hands to the railing, staring at her reflection in a puddle that mirrored the city lights. For a moment, she didn't see herself, but someone older,
draped in white robes embroidered with constellations. Her hair was silver, her eyes glowing faintly gold. Then, in a blink, the image was gone. She gasped, "I saw her again." Aris glanced up from the rune-marked maps spread before him. "Who?" "The woman in my visions. She feels like—" She hesitated. "Me, but older, wiser. Like she's watching through the cracks of time." He nodded slowly. "The first dreamkeeper. Every dreamkeeper inherits fragments of the one before them. She's guiding you through memory." She took a step closer, studying the map. It was made of glass, layered with glowing symbols that shifted as Aris traced them with his fingertip. "What is that?" "The map of hours," he said softly. "It shows where the threads of time are strongest and where they're breaking." He pointed toward one glowing point near the center. "Here. The old clock tower. It's where time itself began in this city. If we can reach it, maybe you can use your gift to rebind the threads." "But those creatures—" "Will follow us," Aris finished. "They always do." He gave her a half smile, soft but resolute. "But this time, we're not running. We're rewriting." That night, they descended into the streets together, Liana wearing a long gray coat, Aris carrying a satchel filled with paints and rune chalk. The rain had turned to mist, glowing faintly with a strange inner light. Every reflection in the puddles seemed to shimmer with movement, as though other worlds were watching back. As they walked, Liana noticed faint golden patterns appearing along her hands, delicate spirals and stars, moving like ink beneath her skin. "What's happening to me?" Aris looked at her hand, awe flickering in his gaze. "The timekeeper's mark. Your soul is remembering its power." She traced one glowing pattern with her thumb. "It feels warm, like it's alive." "It is," he said. "That mark means you're part of the weave now. The threads respond to you." They reached the plaza of the old clock tower, a towering structure of black marble and iron, its enormous clock face frozen at 12. Or rather, not quite 12. The hands were trembling, caught between 12 and 13. Liana's breath caught. "That's impossible." Aris's voice was low. "Not if time itself is trying to warn us." He handed her a small crystal sphere glowing with faint light. "Hold this. Focus on the future you want to see." She closed her eyes, and instantly the world shifted. She saw flashes, thousands of them. A city crumbling beneath shattered skies, shadows devouring light, people fading like photographs in flame. Then another vision, herself and Aris standing hand in hand, surrounded by golden threads, the world reborn in light. Liana gasped and dropped the sphere. "I saw it, the world ending and then reborn." Aris picked up the sphere carefully. "You saw both outcomes because the future isn't written. It's chosen." A low vibration echoed through the plaza. The ground cracked, and from beneath the cobblestones, shards of time rose like glass blades. Figures began to emerge again, the silver-eyed ones, their whispers rising in unison. The clock must not strike 13. The dreamkeeper must not awaken. Liana's hands flared with gold. "I think it's too late for that." She raised her arms instinctively, and the golden threads from her palms shot forward, weaving into a luminous barrier that pulsed with energy. The creatures struck it, hissing, their forms breaking into mist. Aris stepped beside her, his voice calm despite the chaos. "Good. You're remembering faster than before." The clock above them began to chime, once, twice, thrice.
slow and deep, echoing through the city like thunder. Liana turned toward it. It's moving again. Then time's giving us a chance, but we'll need to find the heart, the core, that powers the weave, before the 13th strike. The air grew colder. The final chime hung unfinished, frozen mid-sound. And then, on her palm, one golden mark burned brighter than the rest, forming a perfect spiral that glowed like the center of a star. She stared at it, her voice barely a whisper. "Aris, I think the heart is inside me."
The wind around the clock tower stilled, as if the very air held its breath. Liana stared at her palm. The golden spiral burned brighter, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. The glow spread slowly up her wrist, swirling into her veins like threads of living light. Aris stepped closer, eyes wide with something between awe and fear. "You're the heart," he whispered. "The power that keeps the threads alive. It's not an object. It's you." Liana's pulse quickened. "But how? Why me?" "Because you always were." He took her hand gently, his thumb brushing over the mark. "Every dreamkeeper carried a piece of the heart, but in this life, it was reborn whole inside you. You are the rhythm of time itself." The realization hit her like a wave. She remembered flashes, ancient temples bathed in moonlight, entire worlds built on the pulse of her magic. She saw Aris kneeling before her in another life, promising to guard her heart, not just in one lifetime, but in all of them. The images faded, leaving her breathless. "I remember," she whispered. "You were there. When the first clock was built, you swore to protect me." Aris nodded slowly, "And I failed. Every time the cycle ended, you forgot, and I remembered. Until now." Before she could respond, the ground trembled. The clock tower's face flickered with light, the numbers shimmering and rearranging themselves. 12 melted into 13, and from the shadows of the tower's base, dark smoke began to spill. The fractured ones were returning, faster, more distorted. Their whispers crawled through the air. The heart must not awaken. The cycle must end. Aris's hand tightened around hers. "You have to trust your instincts, Liana. Let the threads guide you. But what if I break them? Then we break them together." The creatures lunged. Liana raised her hand, and golden light burst from her chest like a sunrise. Threads of energy rippled outward, connecting every clock, every light, every shimmer of reflection across the city. She felt it all, time itself flowing through her, alive and vast. She could see centuries like pages in a book, each heartbeat a turning moment. She saw her past selves, the dream keepers who came before, standing beside her in spirit. Their voices became one. "We are not bound by time. We are time." The creatures shrieked as the light touched them, dissolving into dust. But as they vanished, a figure emerged from their ashes. Tall, cloaked in shadow, eyes glowing a deep, unnatural red. Aris went rigid. "No." The figure stepped forward, his voice resonant and cold. "You woke her too soon, painter." Liana felt the air twist around him. The world flickered, colors draining away. "Who are you?" she demanded. "I am the echo that follows every moment, the space between heartbeats. I am Noctin, the keeper of ends. And you, Dreamkeeper, should have never remembered." Aris moved in front of her, his hand glowing with blue sigils. "You won't touch her." Noctin smiled faintly. "You can't protect her forever, Aris. You never could." He raised his hand, and the sky split open. Threads tore apart, golden light scattering like sparks in a storm. The clock tower shook, gears grinding and shrieking. Liana fell to her knees, gripping her chest as pain surged through her.
Her heart felt like it was unraveling, light spilling out in waves. Aris caught her, his voice desperate. "Liana, look at me. Breathe. You are the heart. You control the flow, not him." Her vision blurred. She saw two paths, one leading to endless light, one to darkness. The voices of the dreamkeepers echoed. Choose hope. Choose love. She reached up, pressing her glowing palm to Aris's chest. Their lights merged, gold and blue spiraling together like twin stars. The air around them ignited, forming a radiant pulse that spread through the city. Nocton staggered back, his form flickering. "You can't stop entropy forever," he hissed. "Every beginning ends." Liana's voice rose, trembling but fierce. "Then let this be an ending that begins again, in hope." The light erupted, a storm of radiance that consumed the shadow. For a heartbeat, time itself stopped. When the light faded, Nocton was gone. The sky cleared, the city lights flickered back to life. The clock struck 12 again, calm, steady, alive. Aris exhaled, still holding her. "You did it." Liana looked down at her hand. The spiral still glowed faintly, but now it pulsed in harmony with Aris's. "We did it," she said softly. He smiled, a real smile this time, filled with wonder and exhaustion. "Then maybe the future finally remembered us." Above them, dawn broke, sunlight spilling over the tower like golden fire. And for the first time in centuries, time flowed forward without breaking.
The first dawn after the storm came softly. Light spilled across the rooftops of Erenville, gilding every clock face in gentle gold. The city, once fractured by temporal chaos, seemed to hum again with harmony. Liana stood on the balcony of the clock tower, eyes half closed as she felt the wind move around her. Warm, alive, filled with whispers only she could hear. The threads of time shimmered faintly around her, like fine silk catching sunlight. Aris approached quietly, carrying 2 steaming cups of amber tea. "You haven't rested," he said, his voice low. She smiled, though her eyes looked distant. "Time doesn't sleep, Aris, and now that I can feel it, neither can I." He handed her a cup. "You don't have to carry it all alone." For a moment, silence lingered, the kind that spoke more than words could. The city below stirred to life, markets opening, airships lifting, laughter echoing faintly through the streets. But behind that normal rhythm, Liana felt something else, a distortion, like a faint tremor in the melody of time. She set the cup down. "It's not over." Aris frowned. "Nocton's gone." "Gone," she echoed softly, "but not erased." She turned toward him, her eyes glowing faintly gold. "He said every beginning ends. What if he wasn't threatening me, but warning us?" Before Aris could respond, a sudden gust rippled through the air, cold and unnatural. The clock tower's gears groaned. The light dimmed. From the horizon, clouds gathered unnaturally fast, swirling in patterns that defied logic, a spiral that mirrored the one on Liana's palm. Aris's jaw tightened. "That's not natural time flow." "It's a ripple," Liana brisk-cut. "Something's breaking again." Without thinking, she placed her hand against the nearest clock face. Golden light spread outward, but this time the threads pushed back. She gasped as flashes filled her mind, visions not of the past or future, but of something beyond both. A realm where time ended. A vast void of silver sand and frozen stars. In its heart stood a mirror, cracked, humming with power. A voice echoed through her. "The heart cannot mend what was never meant to be whole." She stumbled back, clutching her head. Aris caught her instantly, steadying her as the vision faded. "What did you see?" Her voice trembled. "The mirror of ages. It's calling. But if it's real, it lies outside the timeline, in the still point. Aris paled. That place doesn't exist, Liana. It's legend, a myth even dreamkeepers feared to speak of. They say anyone who enters it forgets their name, their life, everything. Her gaze met his, fierce, determined, and heartbreakingly gentle. Then I'll go anyway. He shook his head. You can't. I have to. Noctin's not our enemy. He's a symptom of something older. The threads are fraying again because the source is broken. If I can reach the still point, I might be able to fix it before time collapses completely. Aris stepped closer, frustration and fear in his voice. And if you vanish, if the heart stops beating... She reached up, brushing his cheek with trembling fingers. Then promise me, you'll remember. He caught her hand, holding it against his chest. I can't lose you again, Liana. Her lips curved in a sad, knowing smile. Then come with me. He froze. To the edge of time? Yes. A long silence fell. The air around them shimmered faintly, the threads awaiting their choice. Finally, Aris exhaled, resolve hardening in his eyes. Then we go together. That night, under a fractured moon, they prepared. Liana gathered fragments of the heart's light into a crystal pendant, the pulse of golden energy flickering like a second heartbeat. Aris painted new sigils on his hands, symbols of protection and remembrance. At midnight, they stood before the clock tower's great dial. The hands glowed silver and gold, aligning not at 12, but at 13. Liana pressed the pendant to the center of the dial. Take us to the edge of time. The world shattered into light. They fell through endless reflections, moments, memories, forgotten futures. They heard laughter, crying, silence. Through it all, she held Aris's hand. Then, stillness. They landed on soft silver sand beneath a black sky filled with frozen stars. Every sound was muted, every breath a whisper. The still point. In the distance, the mirror of ages rose, towering, cracked, shimmering with faint reflections of every version of themselves across eternity. Aris whispered, "We shouldn't be here." Liana stepped forward, her pendant glowing brighter. "We already are." As she approached the mirror, her reflection shifted. Not just her own image, but a dozen others, the dream keepers before her, each one watching in silence. Then one stepped forward from within the glass, a version of her with eyes like molten gold and hair like fire. "You came to mend the cycle," the reflection said softly. "But every repair demands a sacrifice." Liana's throat tightened. What sacrifice? Memory. The more you fix, the more you forget. Even love fades in the balance. Aris took her hand. We've rebuilt everything by remembering each other. If we forget, then you break the loop, the reflection said, and create a new beginning. The mirror shimmered violently, cracks glowing brighter. Time itself trembled around them. Liana turned to Aris, tears in her eyes, but fire in her voice. We'll write a new story then, one that remembers love. She raised her hand and touched the mirror. The world exploded into golden light.
Silence. At first it felt peaceful, like the pause between two heartbeats. Then slowly, the world began to breathe again. Liana opened her eyes. She was standing in a vast field of light, where silver grass swayed though there was no wind. The air shimmered with faint reflections, like fragments of broken mirrors suspended around her. Each shard pulsed softly, showing glimpses of moments, pieces of time that were slipping away. Aris? Her voice echoed, strange, hollow, fading before it could reach the horizon. She turned around and froze. He wasn't there. Where he had stood a heartbeat ago, only faint footprints remained in the glowing grass. Panic surged through her chest. She clutched the pendant, the heart's pulse weak and uneven. No, 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 no. The light around her dimmed. The mirror's shards began to tremble, spinning faster as if drawn by an invisible current. Then a voice whispered, soft and eerily familiar, "You should not have touched the mirror." Liana spun around and gasped. It was herself, not the reflection she saw before. This version was older, ethereal, eyes silver instead of gold. A faint scar crossed her cheek, and her expression held both kindness and sorrow. The still point does not forget, Dreamkeeper. It preserves, but in preserving, it consumes. What did it take? Where's Aris? He exists, but not here. The still point divides all that binds too tightly. It feared the strength of your bond. Her pulse quickened. Then send me to him. You can't go to him the way you are, not until you understand what it means to remember. The mirrored field rippled, the shards flaring with light. Every Dreamkeeper must walk the path of memory. Only then can the heart restore what has been lost. Before Liana could protest, the world fractured. She stood now in the middle of a theater, its velvet curtains torn, its stage cracked with age. Dust drifted through sunlight streaming from a shattered dome above. A single spotlight flickered, and a younger Liana stepped onto the stage. Not the Dreamkeeper, just a girl, wide-eyed, full of wonder. The young Liana began to speak, her voice trembling. One day, I'll find a light so bright, it'll make even the shadows listen. Then another spotlight flared, revealing Aris. But this Aris was different too. His hands were stained with paint, his clothes worn. The quiet boy behind the curtains. He looked at her like she was the whole world. Liana's throat tightened. This was the beginning. The elder Liana's voice echoed around her. Do you see now? Memory is the first magic, and love is the reason time moves at all. Liana reached out, her fingers brushing through the illusion. The moment shimmered and broke like glass. She saw flashes, 1,000 scenes, 1,000 lives, each one where she and Aris found each other, only to lose again. In fire, in flood, in silence, in stars. But always, always, finding again. Tears streamed down her face. Why does it hurt so much? Because you remember everything that was ever loved. Liana fell to her knees, the weight of eternity pressed down, too heavy, too vast. But in the middle of the storm, one memory shone brighter than all the rest. Aris's voice whispering through the threads of time. If the world forgets, I'll remember for both of us. The pendant in her hand flared, gold and blue light merging once more. The elder Liana smiled softly. You found the truth, haven't you? Liana stood, light gathering around her like wings. Yes, the mirror doesn't decide what to forget. We do. She pressed the pendant to her heart. And I choose to remember love. The still point trembled. The mirrors cracked, light spilling out in golden storms. The older version of herself began to fade, her voice barely a whisper. Then go, Dreamkeeper. The threads await you. Liana closed her eyes and stepped forward. When she opened them again, she was falling. Down through clouds of light, through echoes of laughter and sorrow, through every second she'd ever lived. Then, arms caught her. She looked up into Aris's face. His eyes were wide with disbelief, then relief so raw it nearly broke her heart. Liana, he whispered. I thought you... I remembered, she breathed. The world around them glowed, the still point collapsing into a single pulse of light that rejoined the threads of time. For the first time since the beginning, everything was whole. That night, under a sky reborn, they stood at the edge of Vale once more. The city was peaceful, the clocks steady. Aris reached for her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers. So this is what forever feels like. Liana smiled. No, this is what now feels like, and that's enough. They looked up at the stars, no longer frozen, but moving. And among them, faint and eternal, one shimmered brighter than the rest. A single reminder that time bends, but love endures.
Morning light spilled through the windows of the clock tower, soft and golden, like time itself was breathing slower, gentler at last. Liana sat at the workbench, her hands hovering over a map of light threads spread across the table. The golden spiral on her palm pulsed faintly, tracing invisible constellations through the air. Yet for the first time in days, she wasn't afraid. Behind her, she heard quiet footsteps and the sound of a brush being set down. Aris stood near the window, sleeves rolled up, streaks of blue paint across his fingers. He had been painting again, something he hadn't done since before the awakening. Liana turned toward him, curious. "You found time to paint?" He smiled faintly, eyes reflecting the early sunlight. "I had to. The world was breaking before. Now it's breathing again. I wanted to see what it looks like when it's whole." She approached, and her breath caught. Across the wall, Aris had painted a mural unlike anything she had ever seen. Vale, glowing beneath two moons, silver threads of light stretching across skies and rivers. In the center, two silhouettes stood hand in hand, one glowing gold, one blue, surrounded by swirling constellations that formed a heart. Liana whispered, "It's beautiful." Aris set the brush down. "It's alive." As he said it, the paint shimmered. The figures on the mural flickered faintly, moving as if breathing. The light in the painting began to ripple, softly, like waves responding to an unseen tide. Liana stared in awe. "Aris, the threads are reacting to you." He blinked. "What do you mean?" She reached toward the mural, and when her fingers brushed the edge of the painted light, a faint hum filled the air, the same resonance she felt when touching the threads of time. "You're not just painting, you're reshaping it." He looked down at his hands, the same ones that had painted thousands of backdrops, built countless sets no one ever noticed. "So it's true. I was always part of it. The heart remembers and the painter creates." Liana nodded slowly. "We're two halves of the same rhythm." The air shifted. The mural's glow spread to the clock tower's walls, spilling into the city beyond. For a moment, Vale shimmered, the world reflecting not just time's memory, but Aris's imagination. Mountains shimmered with color, rivers glowed faintly beneath starlight. Every lantern, every reflection carried a hint of dream. The city itself was alive with creation. But just as quickly as it began, a tremor rippled through the air, faint but sharp. Liana's expression darkened. "The balance is shifting again." "How? I thought..." "It's not just about remembering or painting. The threads need something else, a future." A faint echo rose from the city below, voices murmuring in unison, like fragments of a song she couldn't quite hear. "The cycle must flow forward, or time will freeze once more." She gripped the pendant at her neck. "The heart rebuilt the past, but if we don't give time direction, a purpose, it will loop endlessly." Aris stepped closer, his gaze steady. "Then we give it one." She looked at him uncertain. "How?" He touched her wrist where the golden spiral still pulsed. "You remember what was. I imagine what can be. Together, we create what will be." The words seemed to awaken something deep within the tower. The great clock began to turn again, not in the old, rigid rhythm of before, but in a fluid spiral of motion. Its hands glowed with gold and blue, intertwining like strands of light. A wind swept through the city, carrying petals, laughter, warmth. And for a brief, breathtaking moment, everyone in Arnvale looked up and saw their own dreams flickering across the sky. Children gasped, artists cried, lovers held hands. The future was no longer written, it was being painted. Liana turned to Aris, awe softening into something deeper. "You've given time a heart again." He shook his head gently. "We both did." The world around them pulsed once more, the golden and blue lights merging into a radiant sphere that rose above the tower. From it descended faint motes of starlight, settling across the city like blessings. Then the sphere faded, leaving peace. For a long while, neither spoke. Finally, Liana broke the silence. "Do you ever wonder what happens after forever?" Aris smiled, a little wistfully. "Maybe forever isn't about lasting forever. Maybe it's about never stopping becoming." She leaned her head against his shoulder, feeling the gentle rhythm of his heartbeat, a sound that no longer belonged to just one moment, but to all of them. Outside, the clocks of Arnvale chimed in harmony, and for the first time since the beginning of time, the sound didn't mark an ending, but a beginning. The first sound was a whisper, faint, delicate, like wind brushing across glass. Liana stirred from her rest, eyes opening to the soft glow of the morning light filtering through the clock tower's high windows. The golden spiral on her palm pulsed to the rhythm of the sound, steady, almost melodic. She sat up slowly. The air shimmered faintly, golden dust motes swirling like notes suspended mid-song. Somewhere beneath the surface of the city, she could feel it, a hum, ancient and alive. Then she heard it, a melody. It began as a single tone, low and sweet, rising gently through the air. It didn't come from the clocks or the bells. It came from everywhere, from the water, from the walls, from the beating of hearts. The sea was singing. "Aris," she whispered. He was already awake, standing by the open balcony, his paint-stained hands resting on the railing. His eyes were distant, reflecting the soft shimmer that blanketed the streets below. "You hear it too," he said. Liana nodded. "The song of the threads." He turned toward her. "What is it?" She hesitated, listening again. The melody seemed to shift and weave through itself, thousands of voices, all connected. Joy, sorrow, longing, hope, all flowing together in one vast harmony. It's the sound of life remembering itself. Every soul connected by time, by choice, is singing back to the heart. Aris stepped beside her, and together they looked down at Arnvale. The streets shimmered with faint light. People stood in awe, hands over their hearts, tears streaming as the song touched them. The river that cut through the city rippled in perfect rhythm. Even the airships above the towers seemed to hover still, as if listening. For the first time, time itself sounded alive. But beneath the harmony, a second sound began to rise, faint, discordant, like a bell struck out of tune. Liana froze. "Do you hear that?" Aris frowned. "It's off-key." The melody wavered, the harmony trembling. The golden light across the city flickered like a candle in the wind. Liana's pulse quickened. Something, or someone, is breaking the rhythm. She reached for the pendant at her neck. The glow within it dimmed, as though responding to a hidden imbalance. Then, from the horizon, a shape emerged. Dark mist coiled in the distance, weaving through the streets like smoke with purpose. Wherever it passed,
The song faltered. Aris's jaw tightened. Noctin? Liana shook her head. No, it feels older. He was a shadow born of imbalance. This is the silence before the first note. He stared at her. You mean the void? The word itself seemed to make the air colder. Before there was time, before the first thread was spun, there had been nothing. The void, the unremembered beginning, and now it was awake. By nightfall, the once bright city was quiet again. The golden glow had dulled to amber. Liana sat at the heart of the clock tower, her hands hovering over the map of threads. But even they seemed to dim, their light fading at the edges. Aris paced restlessly. If the void consumes the song, everything we rebuilt, it won't, she said firmly. The song of the threads came from hope, from memory. It can't vanish unless we let it. He stopped, looking at her. So how do we fight nothing? Liana looked down at her palm, the spiral faintly flickering. By giving it something it's never had, a voice. She stood and faced him, eyes burning with a quiet fire. If time is a song, then I'll sing it back into balance. He blinked. You mean, I'll go into the silence. No, he said instantly. Leona, the void isn't a place, it's an absence. If you go there, I'll fill it, she said softly, with memory, with love, with everything it forgot. His voice broke. And if you don't come back? She smiled faintly, stepping closer. Then you'll paint me a way home. His throat tightened. You always find a way to make the impossible sound simple. She touched his cheek. Because with you, it is. Then she took his hand, pressing it over her heart. Listen, if the song falters, follow the melody. It will lead you to me. The golden spiral on her palm flared, and the threads around the tower stirred, lifting like strands of light drawn toward her heartbeat. And before Aris could speak again, the light consumed her, and Liana vanished into the silence between worlds. In the sudden stillness that followed, Aris stood alone, the faint hum of the song now barely audible. His hand trembled as he looked at the mural on the wall, the golden and blue figures still glowing faintly. He picked up his brush, dipped it in light, and whispered, Then I'll paint until I find you. As his brush touched the wall, the melody stirred again, faint but determined, and somewhere in the infinite quiet, Liana's voice began to sing.
There was no light, no sound, no beginning and no end. Liana opened her eyes to nothingness. She floated in an expanse so vast it made the concept of distance meaningless. The golden glow that once burned in her chest flickered weakly, a single candle in an eternal night. This was the void, the space before the first word, before the first breath, before even time had dared to exist. Her heartbeat echoed faintly, each pulse swallowed by the endless quiet. So this, she whispered, is what nothing feels like. The words didn't echo. They vanished, consumed instantly by the absence surrounding her. The silence here wasn't merely lack of sound. It was alive. It pressed against her skin, her thoughts, her very soul, trying to erase every trace of her existence. But she clung to one thing, one thread that refused to fade. Aris's voice. If the world forgets, I'll remember for both of us. She closed her eyes and reached for that memory like a compass in the dark. Aris, I'm still here. And in answer, faint,
Like the first hum of a distant star, she felt warmth flicker within her chest. She began to walk, though in the void, movement had no meaning. Every step felt like walking through molasses made of shadow. Her own body seemed to dissolve and reform with every thought. But she sang. At first, it was only a whisper, broken, trembling, a single note of gold that wove through the stillness like a spark. The void recoiled. The air, if it could be called that, trembled around her. Her song grew stronger, the golden spiral on her palm flaring to life. You are not nothing. You are the pause between hope and memory. The darkness rippled. For the first time, something moved in the void. Shapes, faint outlines began to emerge, fractured reflections of all that time had forgotten. Faces, worlds, fragments of dreams long erased. They whispered, "Why do you sing when there is nothing to hear?" She answered, her voice shaking but sure, "Because love remembers, even when time does not." Her golden light spread, threads unraveling from her heart, winding through the shadows. They pulsed in rhythm, each one singing with her. But the void fought back. A wave of cold swept through her, trying to silence her song. The voices turned harsh, accusing. Every melody fades, every promise breaks, every light dies. Liana fell to her knees, gasping. The pendant at her neck dimmed, its pulse faltering. For a moment, she felt herself slipping, her name, her face, even the memory of warmth beginning to blur. And then, a sound broke through. A brush stroke. Gentle, steady, the sound of a brush paint sweeping across unseen air. Aris. Liana's breath caught. She closed her eyes and felt it, threads of blue light cutting through the darkness, reaching toward her. Somewhere far away, in the world she had left behind, Aris was painting. Each stroke of his brush was a promise, each color a memory of her smile. She rose again, trembling but burning bright. "Then we'll sing together," she whispered. Her voice intertwined with his colors, gold and blue spiraling, weaving across the void like twin comets. The nothingness screamed, collapsing inward. The song grew louder, clearer, purer, a melody that transcended words. And in that moment, she saw him, not with eyes, but through the threads that bound their souls. Aris stood in the clock tower, brush glowing, painting her silhouette into the stars. She reached toward him through the swirling light. "Aris!" He looked up and smiled through tears. "Found you." The void convulsed. The silence cracked like glass. From the center of the abyss, a figure emerged, vast, faceless, formed from shadows and echoes. Its voice was the sound of erasure. "You defy the end." Liana stood tall, light blazing from her chest. "No, I rewrite it." The heart's glow consumed her, flooding the darkness with light. Every thread of memory, every song, every painting, every heartbeat, all fused together in a single, radiant pulse. The void shattered. Light rushed outward in a tidal wave of creation. Stars ignited, time breathed again, and at the center of it all, two figures stood hand in hand, gold and blue entwined in a dance that would become the new dawn. When the light faded, Liana opened her eyes. She was back in Orenvale, the city shimmering with morning light, alive and whole. The clocks chimed in harmony, every note clear and bright. And beside her, still holding her hand, was Aris. His smile was weary, but filled with wonder. "You brought the song back." Liana shook her head, tears glimmering in her eyes. "We did."
The world hummed softly, a melody that now belonged to both of them. For in the silence, they had found the sound that could never fade. Love.
The world exhaled, softly at first, as though the universe itself were waking from a long, heavy sleep. A pale golden light spread across the skyline of Aris Vale, melting the last fragments of night. The river that cut through the city shimmered like liquid starlight, its waves whispering lullabies of memory. Liana stood on the clock tower balcony, the wind playing with her hair, her eyes reflecting the newborn sunrise. The heart's mark still glowed faintly at her wrist, a soft pulse that synced to the rhythm of her heart. Every beat whispered the same message: "You're still here." Behind her, the old clock tower gears hummed with new life. The timepieces of Aris Vale, long frozen during the unraveling, now ticked in perfect harmony. Time, once fractured, had been healed. And yet, something felt different. The world looked the same, but beneath its surface, something invisible shimmered. Every color felt deeper, every sound rang with music, every human face carried traces of forgotten dreams. Magic was no longer hiding. Aris joined her quietly, his coat still dusted with gold paint. He stood beside her, their shoulders brushing, and offered a small smile. "Still think you're dreaming?" he teased softly. Liana laughed under her breath. "If I am, don't wake me." He turned to look at the horizon, the city glowing with morning light. "It's strange. Everything feels so familiar and yet new." She nodded. The world was rewritten. Every soul carries a memory of what was lost, even if they can't name it. He glanced at her wrist. "And you? What did you keep?" Her eyes softened. "You." Down below, the streets of Aris Vale began to stir. People stepped out of their homes, pausing in quiet wonder. The city bells rang a tune that hadn't been heard in centuries, a melody from the old days when Aris Vale was said to have been built upon the dream of a star. And for the first time in living memory, flowers bloomed along the riverbanks in midwinter. It was as if the world itself remembered what it was meant to be. Later that morning, they walked through the Market of Echoes, a place now alive with color and light. Merchants spoke of strange dreams they'd had, of cities made of clouds, of glowing threads connecting strangers across the night sky. A young boy ran up to Liana, holding out a paper crane. "Lady, you dropped this," he said shyly. She frowned softly. She hadn't been carrying anything. But when she unfolded the crane, there were words written inside in tiny handwriting. "The future still dreams of you." Her breath caught. The words pulsed faintly with golden light. Aris read over her shoulder, then smiled faintly. "Someone remembers." "Or something," she murmured. "The heart's magic might not be done with us." That night, they returned to the Halo Theater, the place where it all began. Dust motes drifted through the air like tiny stars. The old stage still smelled of velvet and memory. Liana ran her hand along the edge of the curtain, her fingertips tracing the grooves she once touched 100 times before. "It feels like another lifetime," she whispered. Aris chuckled. Technically, it was. They stood in silence for a moment, the hush before the story breathes again. Then Liana looked up at the stage lights. "Do you ever wonder if we were meant to find each other every time?" His answer came without hesitation. Not meant to, chosen to, every time. Her heart ached at the gentleness of his voice. "Even when the world forgets us?" He reached for her hand, brushing his thumb against her wrist where the golden mark still shimmered. "Then we remind it." Outside, thunder rumbled faintly. A storm was gathering over the sea, strange, luminous, threaded with light that shimmered like constellations. Liana stepped closer to the edge of the stage, her voice soft but steady. "If this is another beginning, then maybe it's our turn to guide it." Aris smiled, eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Then let's make sure this time the story ends with light. The theater lights flickered, once, twice, then burst into golden glow, illuminating them in radiance. And in that golden light, they heard the world hum, not as a song of farewell, but as a promise. The storm came at twilight. The horizon split open with light that wasn't lightning, but memory. Each flash illuminated scenes that weren't real, or weren't yet. A child laughing by the sea, a tower of glass rising from the ocean, two hands clasping across centuries. Liana stood at the balcony of the Halo Theater, her hair whipping in the wind, her eyes wide as the sky itself shimmered with fragments of futures still unwritten. It's beautiful and terrifying. Beside her, Aris tightened his grip on the rail. The heart isn't done. It's rewriting the balance between dream and reality. Below, Arenvale's citizens had gathered in the streets, staring up at the celestial storm. The air shimmered with golden mist. Petals of light drifted like snow. The city was silent, not with fear, but awe. And then, in the distance, something moved. A figure, vast and shifting, woven from the same silver-blue light as the storm. It wasn't darkness this time, but reflection. It looked like a person made of sky. And when it spoke, the entire world seemed to inhale. "Dream rights," the voice said, soft, echoing, endless. "You have woken the heart." Liana stepped forward. "Who are you?" The figure smiled, its features forming and dissolving like water. "The architect of the first dawn, the one who built the world from songs you now call time." The words rang inside her soul like bells. The creator, the one who dreamed us into being. Not creator, it corrected gently. Dream right. We create together. Every soul that loves, remembers, or hopes adds a thread to the pattern. Aris looked up at the being, his blue eyes shining with awe. "Then why did you let it all fall apart?" The Dreamwright's voice grew sad. "Because creation demands forgetting. The world grows only when it believes it is lost." Liana felt tears sting her eyes. "We were never lost, just trying to find our way back." The being tilted its head, almost smiling. "And you did. You sang in the silence. You painted light in the void. You remembered." The storm pulsed brighter, and with it came visions, moments from their journey, each heartbeat echoing through the sky. The stage, the clock tower, the void, the song, their love burning through it all. "You proved that even when dreams end, love endures. That makes you Dreamwrights now, shapers of what comes next." Aris turned to her, eyes soft. "So we choose the next dream." She nodded slowly, realization dawning like sunrise. "We choose hope." The heart appeared before them again, hovering in the air, pulsing gently with gold and blue light. Liana reached out her hand, and Aris placed his over hers. Together, they touched the heart. It flared with warmth, but instead of consuming them, it unfolded. Light poured out, not destructive, but creative. It filled the sky, the sea, the mountains. It reached the people of Arenvale, settling into their hearts like quiet fire. Every person began to remember their dreams, the ones they'd buried under fear and time. An old painter took up his brush again. A child began singing to the stars. A woman who had forgotten how to hope felt tears on her face and didn't know why. The world was dreaming again. The dreamwright smiled, its form dissolving into starlight. Then it is done. The dawn is yours. And as it faded, its last whisper lingered. Create beautifully. The storm dispersed, leaving a sky so clear it seemed newly born. Liana turned to Aris, her face bathed in the light of 1,000 stars. So what now? He smiled, that soft, infinite smile that belonged to someone who had seen eternity and chose love anyway. Now, he said, we start painting. She laughed, tears slipping down her cheeks. Together? He reached out his hand, golden light curling between his fingers. Always. Epilogue. Years later, Aris Vale would become known as the city that dreams. Its skyline shimmered with color and music. Every building held whispers of stories painted into its stones. People came from far lands, drawn not by trade or fame, but for something they couldn't name. In the heart of the city stood the restored Halo Theater, where every performance was said to make the stars shine brighter. And sometimes, when the curtain rose and the lights dimmed, a faint golden glow shimmered across the stage. A woman's laughter, a brushstroke of light, a love that had rewritten time itself. The legend said they still walked there. The girl who remembered tomorrow and the artist who painted forever. Together, crafting the next dream.
And so, their love became the thread that time could never cut, a reminder that even when the future seems lost, the heart always remembers its way home. Thank you for journeying with us through The Girl Who Remembered Tomorrow. If this story touched your heart, if you still believe that love can defy time itself, then stay a while longer. Like the video, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss another tale where hearts remember, dreams awaken, and love always finds its way. Written by PK, narrated by Whisperglass Stories.